Hello, Robert Evans. Um, so for this final project, I decided to do a paper on Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz. She was one of the earlier authors and poets from Mexico. Um, and so how I kind of formulated this essay was I did more of like a short biography of who she was, where she came from, and then I moved in from that into what she wrote about, some of the major themes and motifs that she had throughout her writing, those being um, love and loss, but also kind of calling out a lot of men, because during her time, women weren't really permitted an education. They weren't allowed to get higher education. They were meant to care for the home, learn how to raise children, things like that. Um, and so in her early years, um, being prepubescent and things like that, she disguised herself as a boy and went to the school that the boys would go to, just to gain an education. Um, However, after that stopped working, she decided to go down the roads of faith, and she actually became a nun, and that's where Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz comes from, because Sor Juana is like Sister Juana. And when she did that is when she decided to get into the poetry and the writing, as a more serious means of self-expression. Um, she she wrote a lot about the roles that men and women both play when it comes to relationships. And this was something that the church didn't necessarily fully approve of, because she was in the Catholic Church. So it did receive a lot of backlash from the church and the clergy, um, and about the disobedience, and how she was kind of going against the mold that was created for women, not only by the church but as well as Mexico as a whole. Um, the poem that I actually wrote about was called "Foolish Men." Surprisingly enough, however, we don't want to make her sound like a man hater or anything like that. This poem was actually, in my perspective, was a very back and forth. Um, it called out a lot of the faults of men. Don't get me wrong. It brought up a lot of the things that men tend to lack in a relationship, or um, the things that they do exude, being things that are less than favorable. The treatment of women. If a woman is unhappy, how if she speaks out, she's good luck to her, essentially. Um, and I think that it's important to note that she wasn't a man hater. She, especially in this poem, it's a little longer, so it gives you a little bit more of a perspective of where she's coming from when she's writing. As I stated previous, it's a back and forth, from one stanza to the next. She'll be talking about, men using ignorance and arrogance as defense mechanisms, and then women being, a little too timid to speak out, which is a very true statement. Women of that time, and still today in some Mexican cultures, women don't speak out against the treatment of their male counterparts. And Juana wasn't like that. She decided that, it was up to her to document these things and show the world and tell the world exactly what she was going through and what other women of Mexico of the time were going through. And my favorite part about the poem is actually towards the end. She is kind of offering what seem to be, discussion points, opportunities for a man and a woman who may be in a relationship to sit down, level the playing ground, and see where they can, adjust their faults and help the other to grow and prosper and be happy in the relationship. I think that it was nice at the end to have more of that neutral ground where, the questions aren't pointed at men or the questions aren't pointed at women. It's more of a general broad question saying, who is to be at fault? With a woman who, you know, isn't the most subservient, or the man who uses his ignorance and arrogance as defense mechanisms. And with her being a nun, I think there was a lot that could have gone into it religiously. However, I think that religion for her was somewhat left to the wayside and left more to her own personal belief and left out of her writing so that it was more relatable to everyone. In Foolish Men, she does state the who's to be at fault, the woman who gives her body to sin, or the man who pays for the sin. And that was the only religious, point that she brings up. However, being that she is from Mexico, that is relevant to a lot of Mexican people and people of Mexican descent and heritage, as Catholicism is one of the main religions of Mexico. So I think that doing this project really kind of broadened my perspective of the relationship dynamics that do take place in Mexico now, as well as in the past, and the changes that have happened. I think if it wasn't for Sor Juana, I don't think that a lot of the things that we see today in Mexican cultures, and the more fair treatment of women, and I mean women being in literature, being able to express themselves and write and publish now without having to get permission from a man, or having to make sure it was okay. Now they have that ability to write and publish and share their points of view, and if it wasn't for Sor Juana, I don't know that would be possible. But she really did shape Chicana literature to what it is today. She opened that door for women to speak out and speak up, and look at where things have come since then. So thanks so much. Great semester. Bye.